So week 2 of relationships. This week we're talking about sacred relationships. What are sacred relationships? How do we engage in a sacred relationship with others? And how do we engage in a sacred relationship with our partners and with God? These are a few things that we can talk about, and then whatever comes up with you guys as well, what you've gathered or thought about this week about sacred relationships. In my opinion, sacred relationships says deeper into what relationships are really about. Relationships are built on unconditional love, respect, trust. All the other things that are rolled into what relationships are about, that's what sacred relationships are about. But there's also the inclusion of devotion. When we turn a relationship from just a normal kind of everyday interaction to a sacred one, we include love, that deeper love, the unconditional love. In a sacred relationship with another, we never lose sight of God. You know, a sacred relationship, by my definition, is a relationship that deepens our experience of God. That's what a sacred relationship does for us. It deepens our experience with God itself.
Because wherever love is, God is, right?
Mm-hmm. If we try to engage in a sacred relationship without the presence of God, there's no basis of a sacred relationship at all. God is what provides that sacred part of the relationship. It's including a relationship with another that we bring the presence of God into. And so like the relationship that we're creating in this group with each other, we invite Spirit before we start the meeting, so we're including God in the room. So essentially what we've been creating all these weeks in this group, and with the online listeners as well, is we're creating sacred relationships with each other and everybody who listens to these. We're including, Spirit into the room, or God to join us, and that, in my opinion, is what creates this deeper, more sacred relationship. Anybody want to talk about what they feel, what sacred relationships are?
I feel that it's a direct connection. That's the word that kept on going through my mind as you spoke, was the connection with God. You're right, we're enabling that connection, that direct connection with God, which enables that thing with the relationships. That word kept on going through my mind as you spoke, was connection. The connection that we have. Right? We're deepening that connection with God. Mm-hmm. And I love what Lisa said too as well. You're so right, Lisa, when you said that.
True, as soon as you say it. I think everybody can feel that, probably. It's innate in us, yeah. You understand what that means.
We have a lot of interactions that kind of stay on the surface. We may see people every day, and that relationship never really changes. It's based on the weather. It's based on current events in each other's lives, but it's not based on anything other than that.
And you always feel that inside, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You feel that with people that you interact with. Absolutely. Myself, working in a factory, I feel it more than anything, really. Not really anybody in the factory I have that connection with. Outside of the factory there is, but while I'm working, no. You're right, it's that whole relationship with people. You're right, it's the weather, it's the gossip, it's everything that's happening. And it stays there, it stays right there, stagnant almost. It goes no deeper than that.
And probably therefore, I guess it's conditional too then.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a conditioned response actually for everybody in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's thrown in there too in the mix too, which complicates things even worse as well.
So a sacred relationship would be the unconditional. But with you feel that with God. What I do, I know that there's not there's not a penalty to pay or something, you know, we have a strong connection, so we'll work that out.
With Ned, when I'm around Ned, time and space disappear.
Me too.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I
It's
do.
that connection that I have with Ned where time and space, I'm so focused.
I feel that around you also.
And I with you as well,
Yeah.
yes. Time and space just disappear. It's different. You feel that.
Yes,
You want more of that.
yeah.
Like you said, when you made me a coffee the other day in a large cup, you said, you know why I made you the coffee in a large cup? And I said, no. I said, because I want you to stay longer. I would have stayed anyway, but Lisa made me a coffee in a big cup so I'd stay longer. That was beautiful. Yes.
It's the first time I've tried to trick somebody, to be honest. The first time I've tried to trick someone that way.
It's the first time she's lied today.
It's not true.
That was good.
It's a sacred relationship.
It is.
And we can have that right off with someone, which is interesting too. I don't feel like with everyone you have to build that.
No, because I had that the
A lot
first
of
time I
times.
met Lisa too, Ned, when you introduced me to Lisa. When you shook my hand, I felt that. I felt your energy when you shook my hand, and I knew there was something special in there, and I knew you were the one for him,
Yeah.
because you were almost one and the same, and I felt that right from the start. Yes, we
So
had that right from the
there's
start.
different ways to get to sacred relationships.
Oh, I'm enjoying what you're saying.
No, I'm just realizing that right now. I've always had it in my mind that you have to build it. It starts with a normal relationship, and then you have all these experiences, and you go deeper, almost like there's a timeline to it.
Right.
I think there can be
There can be.
an automatic,
Instantaneous.
instantaneous relationship that's sacred with another.
Yes.
You feel like you've known them. You've always known them.
I've had that with a friend of mine. Her name's Mary. Right from the start, I had that with Mary, and I still have it to this day. We text back and forth, and yeah, she tells me that she feels like a lost kitten. And when I came into her life, I gave her meaning, and we have spiritual talks, her and I. She's in a relationship with a man that is totally the opposite. Doesn't believe in any of this stuff, but I'm there for her, and she's there for me too as well. I'm her teacher, but she's my teacher too as well. And we have that bond, and we have that spiritual connection that we had right from the start. And I knew there was something about her. You know, and she had a perfect upbringing with her mom and dad and everything was beautiful. And yeah, I feel that.
But what I'm pointing to is how we can engage into a sacred relationship without feeling that connection between that person, between you and that person. A sacred relationship can, as long as one person is holding space inside themselves, holding the presence of God within them, that relationship is sacred. Whether the other person gets it or
I
not,
suppose, yeah.
or whether there's a connection made, I think the relationship is still grounded in that sacredness. A sacred relationship calls us to engage others in a sacred relationship, rather. It calls us to stay anchored in that presence, that divine presence of self, the true self. When we're standing strong and the radiance of our true self is just right there, we automatically create a sacred relationship. Whether the other person feels it, doesn't matter. Their presence inside will know. Maybe they won't know consciously, but there will be a seed of awakening in the presence of their consciousness.
Don't you
So-
love that?
Seed of awakening, yes.
I find it, I agree with you, because I find even when I'm helping technicians on the phone, and you used to be like, geez, Crow, come on, you gotta use, now instead I go, how can I serve you? Get inside. Even though there's all this minutia that he's feeding me, I go, how can I serve you? Ask the Creator, how can I serve this person the best? Even in that moment, it's something as small as just helping him with a technical matter. Service is it's not just giving him the information, it's giving him in a way that there is just a channel. And in that moment, I found that they calm down, they relax, and the information is received in a much more clearer pattern, even though you're saying the same words, just because you want to truly be of service. And no matter what you're doing, or what I am doing, if I keep that inside me, how do I serve this person?
So in what you're doing is you're surrendering your ego, a requirement for a sacred relationship. surrendering ego, surrendering self. That's a perfect example of that.
Yes.
Did I cut you off? Like, is there...
Oh, Pam. No, that's the only way. And I've noticed it slowly as it's matured in me. I call it that, because everything percolates and matures a little. And I said, that's all it takes. And that's the funny realization. I said, that's all it takes to change the whole pattern. When somebody throws you a bunch of stuff, not to take it personal, and just say, how can I serve this person to the best of my abilities, and how can I serve them in a way that it truly... Because you just don't want to give them information. It's like, how can I serve them so that brings them to a spot where they're in the house and getting, the customers after them. And all of a sudden, what I noticed is, if I really want to be of service and truly keep that conscious, all of a sudden their energy changes and it's much smoother. And that's over a phone communication. Mm-hmm. Which really surprised me when you start to notice it. And it's just be of service. Just be of service. Mm-hmm. And don't take anything personal, because it's not personal in the end. It's only our interpretation that it is because of the things we're used to. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking.
And that's a good metaphor for how to create a sacred relationship. You have to move yourself from the mind to your spirit and soul, and connect with God, and then connect with others. And that's the transition. That's the difference between a normal relationship and one that is sacred. We're moving the relationship beyond our minds. Mm-hmm. We're removing the mind out of the relationship. That the movement towards releasing our mind, one good way to do that is to bow to whoever you meet. When we're going into a sacred relationship, that's what we're called to do. We're called to meld the mind, body, and spirit. Bring forth a connection of all of that into the relationship. And what I was saying earlier here, what helps us get into that space is by turning our attention inward a little bit. So it's not all of our attention's on our head. We turn a little bit to our spirit, and then we turn a little bit of our attention to the presence of the moment, and then we turn the attention back over to the person in front of us. And it sounds like a process, but it's really not. It's just a matter of maintaining a position of focus in yourself. In the presence of yourself, not just the mind. So what I find helps me go into that presence and release the mind is one of the tools that I use is I bow to people.
It's good to see you, Butch.
Bowing to what's in front of us was a lesson that I had learned from Jack Kornfield. He talked about it in one of his books, and he said he went to this temple to become enlightened. Upon arriving, there was kids running around, farmers sitting around. There was a lot of behavior or presence that he didn't feel was looking at enlightenment. So then he was told that he had to bow to every person that he met, or every person that was there longer than him. He had to bow to his elders. And he said, well, what are my elders? They said, well, every building, place, or person or thing that's been here longer than you. So he had to bow to every temple he walked into, and every child that ran by him in the hall, or to the farmers just sitting there eating nuts. And he found it difficult. But the part of him that found it difficult was his ego. It was his mind. So then he had to learn how to bow before he could ever get deeper within himself. He had to surrender the mind. So he learned to look for things to bow to in people. And when he would see a farmer just sitting in the temple getting fat over the winter, he would bow to the wrinkles behind his eyes, around his eyes, because he knew that farmer had toiled and given the earth so much love. the child that ran by him, instead of saying, that little brat, he's not here for enlightenment, he'd bow to the youthfulness in that child. So I find when I want to engage in a sacred relationship with another, sometimes I need to bow. I need to surrender myself. And that action, the movement of bowing, allows me to go to surrender the mind and go in myself and bring the presence of God into a relationship. Well, the same way that we create sacred relationships with others is the same way we create a sacred relationship with God. We bow to that mind, we let it go, we bow to God, and we ask God to come into our lives, we surrender. And instantly we have a sacred relationship with God.
A way to cultivate sacred relationships, if you wanted to deepen your relationships, is to get really clear in yourself. When we met, both of us we had complete clarity, and then the rest just came, right?
That's the part that I wanted to address, right? Exactly what Lisa's saying. Been talking about how do we create sacred relationships with others, complete strangers, but how do we create a sacred relationship with our partner? Something that Lisa and I have looked at quite a bit. We've learned how to create a sacred relationship. We could have had a relationship just like any other. Wouldn't you agree?
Definitely.
We both made a decision that there was something very special and unique about the relationship.
We already knew how to do a normal relationship. We've done it over and over and over again, or dysfunctional even. We've been through that too. I think it was we had to get really clear and focused really, but without being attached to the outcome either. It goes back to surrender, right?
In a sacred relationship with your partner, at the first I said, what creates a sacred relationship? Devotion. The inclusion of devotion into the relationship. And that's what Lisa and I did with our relationship. We become devoted to each other. Devotion is love, a divine love. We covered that in the week we talked about devotion. Devotion is a little bit more than just your average commitment. Surrendering of self. So we become very devoted to each other. We're devoted to assist each other. A sacred relationship with your partner is designed for, just like what I said before, it's designed for you to know God more. And that's the purpose of the sacred relationship. But it's also, we are committed to each other's growth and assisting each other develop and grow in ourselves. So I'm committed to her path. I'm committed to my path first, however, but I'm committed to assisting my partner to, always find her highest good, and we do that. She reminds me frequently when I need to be reminded, and I bow to that. Like, I listen to what she says.
You do, truly.
Oh, you do that. How many couples don't have that?
Like he says, for us anyway, we feel it's a give and give. That the give and take thing is not, we don't really subscribe to that. You're giving, I think you're too busy about worrying about what you're getting back to you anyway.
Yeah, and that's the premise of our relationship. We don't subscribe to a relationship that's give and take. We are more about an all-give relationship. And that requires me to be honest with myself. So when I ask something of Lisa, can she fulfill that? If I know that if she's busy doing something and I ask her to do something else, am I being realistic in what I'm asking for? Maybe it requires me to be attentive enough to my partner to determine whether they can fulfill that request in the moment. Or maybe I should just get off my butt and do it myself. And in our relationship, which is a sacred one, when she says no to me, it's not a cause for me to throw a temper tantrum. It's not no because she doesn't want to. It's not no because she doesn't care about me. It's a no that she can't in that moment. Or it's a no that she can't altogether. And I'm willing to accept that.
Here's the benefit of having sacred relationships in your life too. As a regular relationship, the give thing can wear you out, right? It depletes you, so it's a different dynamic. It is worth it for us to have a sacred relationship.
Yeah,
They serve every part of us, right?
Yes, and most times, Lisa, it's always one person that's doing more of the giving,
Yeah.
and the other one suffers because of it, right?
Yeah.
And what I've found anyway,
When you have a
it always seems to be one person that's doing all the giving.
Not when you feel like you're in a sacred relationship. It doesn't have that quality to it.
No.
It doesn't feel that way. It's naturally motivating that you want to give.
Yes.
And I think it's sometimes it's easier to create a sacred relationship with a stranger because you don't have all these built up experiences with them. You can just maybe look at them with unconditional love for a split second and then carry on your day. The challenge can be loving your partner unconditionally and holding them in love, maintaining an awareness of love for that person. And when I'm going through a difficult time and I'm not holding myself to my highest potential, that's where she kicks in. She'll hold me in love, and even if I'm acting out in a sacred relationship, instead of her saying, what's your problem today, it changes over to the dynamic of how can I help you, and that's been such a profound thing, that having this relationship, what it's done for me. When I'm having a meltdown and I'm being a jerk, she just sits there and says, how can I help you?
All these things just take you deeper too.
Mm-hmm.
Practices that we do now, that from having a sacred relationship.
We're committed in a sacred relationship with a partner. We're committed to do our best for each other. Mm-hmm. There's always that commitment of maintaining our own awareness of self and our relationship with God. It always comes first. My relationship with God comes before anything. Mm-hmm. Without having God in my life, there is no sacred relationship to be found. So we understand that we're not slipping into a codependent relationship with each other where we become subservient. That's not what we're suggesting. There's always a sense of our relationship with God that's coming first.
Which is supported back and forth.
The mentality of I told you so or an eye for an eye, that's completely let go of. We don't. If I tell her something and then she does something other than that and it doesn't work out for her, I never stand there and say, I told you. I love her because I'm surrendered because it's not for me to control her life. And that's the part that keeps us in a healthy relationship, is that we're not attached to each other's, what each other is doing. We're only there to provide a clear reflection for each other.
That's well said.
Without attachments. What do you guys think it takes to make a sacred relationship with a partner?
I found it interesting when you were talking about one person giving and the other person almost taking. But it's almost like the system is built to balance itself. The balance. Whether you know it or not, because the system has to balance that way. But I find if we balance ourselves first, then that changes. Because this is the only way it can balance itself at that moment.
Yes.
Because it has to reach some sort of equilibrium. It's almost built into the system that way.
Yes.
So when you were speaking of, that's what came to mind. Is the first object is, as Ned says, for me also is, my first is Creator and my relationship with Creator. That creates a balance where the equilibrium will balance, but in a much more creative, productive way.
Yes.
And become more sacred because of that. But you have to realize when you're just giving and somebody's just taking, that is an equilibrium. But is it the one for your highest? You can move to a different place where there's more Because when you get this, I call when you get two people balancing, all of a sudden it goes like this.
Yes.
That's the difference I find.
In trust, you know, a sacred relationship, we're not, when we don't trust, it's fear that's stopping us. Fear is a common denominator in all of our problems, in my opinion. So when we trust, we become fearless. And I think that was one of the things on the list of what creates relationships is trust.
And I don't think it's so much that we're afraid of them, I think we're afraid of ourselves more than we are afraid of that. We just don't know where that friendship is going to go or what that friend is like. We're more afraid of putting ourselves out there than sometimes if we weren't afraid and put ourselves out there, like maybe we could have something better with somebody. But a lot of times we're afraid to just take that first step or say those first words. And I think that's sometimes where if we did it when we were younger, like just took that first step. But sometimes it's really difficult. Do we really want to take that first step? You know, and it's sometimes hard, but what he said about trust, that's exactly true.
And Butch talked about that last week, how for years he didn't talk about God, and now he just does. He could sit and talk about God all day. He's no longer fearful. He's trust.
Reminds me of a cool quote. Fear knocked at the door and love answered, and no one was there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes.
I heard something this morning and I want to repeat it. It's a great relationship. Somebody told me this morning. There was a man and a lady walking down the road, and the man bent over and said to his wife, whispered in her ear, "I love you." So she said to him, "If you love me that much, shout it out to the world. Tell the whole world you love me." And he thought about it for a minute, and he bent down, and he whispered in her ear, "I love you." She said, "No, I told you to shout it out to the whole world." He said to her, "You are my world. You are my world."
Right down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought, oh, I got to share that today. That is just amazing. That's like, couldn't have come at a better time. So, yeah.
So my next question for the group is, what do you think the purpose of sacred relationships are? Do they serve a purpose? What is that?
I feel like you covered that in the beginning when you have to know God more. Relate to that.
Ultimately lead to world peace, Ned. We've all had like-minded ways of thinking and lead us more towards world peace.
We're supposed to be cohesive, right?
And everyone
So-
as one, as we know we are, yet a lot of the world is disconnected because of the ego and everything else involved, that we've got away from those sacred relationships. You're right. Relationship would unify everyone as one. I believe that. If we all lived that way, it would bring us towards that goal, being one.
Exactly. And that's the exact point, well, one of the points I wanted to make, is that when sacred relationships calls God into our relationships, it calls us to maintain a present and awareness of God in ourselves, and it also calls us to look at that presence and awareness of God in another, which then creates a deeper sense of unity between us. Our minds will separate us. It'll create separation every time. Through its ability to judge, the mind can slap out 300 judgments per second. But that's what keeps us it keeps us separated. It says, I'm not like you because I don't, maybe Rob and I are like each other because we have the same bracelets. But, Willie doesn't have one, so he's different than us. He's not part of our club. The mind will bring up all these ideas of how we're separate.
Yes.
But when we engage somebody in a sacred relationship, that act of engaging with another is showing us how we are exactly the same. And it brings a unity between us versus the mind allowing the separation between us.
There is no boundaries there.
I think sacred relationship honors the differences.
Absolutely it honors.
Yes.
what keeps us from doing that is our mind. The mind interrupts the moment we're in. If we're succinct with this moment right now, and we're engaging from that sacred space, there's no distance between you and the person that's in front of you. We see unity. We become unified together. Relationships call us to, the purpose they serve is for us to know God, for us to experience God together, and for us to come together as one, so that so sacred relationships deepen our experience in life. We're meant to be together. We're meant to have relationships. And when we turn those relationships into sacred ones, we step into a much bigger area of what relationships are for. They're for the unification of ourselves with others. And that's my opinion. I'm open to hear.
Much more enriching for yourself even having a sacred relationship like that. Mm-hmm. Know it and you feel it and you want more of it. You want more of the people around you to be that way and to feel that way. Than that before, I wish I could surround myself with people like that all the time. Mm-hmm. What a world I'd live in if it could be that way.
It gives us longevity too, right?
Yes.
All our cells are listening all the time, so when they're vibrating in a good way like that, it's life-giving.
It is.
Yeah. There's so many reasons why we should have it. I think it feels innately primal to have a sacred relationship with you anyway. And I think when the purposes of procreation, if everybody had a sacred relationship, they would raise children differently. The world would be different. So it goes back to world peace again. I think I like that.
Yes, yes. But Ned's right. It's a separation and it's a judgment that doesn't allow it to be that way. Because I often,
or conditioning and stuff.
Yeah, I often even said to myself, how wonderful would it be for me to be in kindergarten, my teacher teach me about my ego that I'm going to learn later on in life. But no one did. No one told me. My ego was responsible for a lot of shortcomings in both of my marriages. Mm-hmm. And I realize that now. That when my ego got involved, it destroyed my relationships. Running from a place of ego. Totally. And I realize that now. Mm-hmm. So the next relationship I have, I will be able to identify that right away.
Yeah.
Like Ned said, take that pause for a second. And ego to wait in the lobby, I got this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what you have to do. But I realize that, Ned. I wish someone would have told me that when I was younger. But they didn't. I didn't find that out till later on in life, till I went through all the emotional red tape and stuff. Maybe I could have avoided all that stuff if I would have known.
We bypass a lot of crap. Like,
oh yeah.
there's a lot of potential things that arise that could be a problem, but because one of us is always in that space, we're able to just move through stuff.
Yes.
It's the shell around that we're breaking out of, all these ourselves that we need to let go of or heal. Our shell is so thin because we have each other.
We do.
I'm cracking away on the inside and she's cracking away on the outside, and that's what a sacred relationship does with couples. You can really move yourself in a very quick fashion because we're not just dealing with our egos anymore.
I don't think just with couples. Like I could see having that with a parent too. As people, I get the feeling that people approach us about our love and they feel like it's unattainable, but it's not. We do have something special, but it's also from the point that we decided to surrender, that there's a momentum with that, or there's God, there's energy, whatever, and it's not, it just carries it, right? Mm-hmm. I think you can have that with other people too, not just...
A lot of practical ground rules that her and I set. We don't live a problem-based relationship. We live a solution-based relationship. Mm-hmm. We've spent more time discussing how we're going to love each other. If problems arise, we already have a contingency plan in place. Yes. We already have a plan in place. We know that, oh yeah, we talked about this. When I start to do this, or when this problem arises, we're going to hold each other in love and talk it through. So we've spent more time discussing how we're going to create the relationship versus arguing for our position in the relationship.
Yes.
Because I watch people that come in to see me, and I look at my past relationships, and there was a me struggling in that. It's like trying to, or you did this to me, and now and that becomes the topic of what the other person did to you. We don't get lost in that. We're always willing to set down our position to see where the middle ground lies.
Eventually, like the longer that we do this, the longer we're together, it starts to trickle into all our other relationships in life, business, everything. So it expands too to include, and anything that isn't like it, it just kind of falls away naturally. We don't have a life filled with unnecessary drama, stuff like that. People I don't know, they're not attracted to the energy that we have that way. So they morph, they change, they come to us in peace usually, or they just won't come at all. And people come. That's another nice byproduct of having sacred relationships in your life.
Another one too, Ned, a problem is nothing more than a solution waiting to happen.
Like that.
And you guys already figured it out. You already had the solution to the problem. When it arises, you instantly know what the solution is.
It's a good feeling.
Not even thinking about it. It's
Yeah.
there. It's instantly there. I thought of Willie when he was on the phone to his clients or whatever. A problem's nothing more than a solution waiting to happen. Well, Willie got it too by surrendering and saying, how can I serve this person? That's paramount that he said that. That really moved me when he said that. He's so right. How may I serve you? That's what it's all about exactly. That's why we're put here. I believe we're put here for two reasons. To be love and to find love is why we're put here, right? If you can find those two things, that's it. Christians even believe that at the end of your life, you are asked those two questions, to move you on to the afterlife. They said, during your lifetime, did you find love? And during your lifetime, did you give love? The answer was yes, you went on to the afterlife. It's just beautiful. I love that. It is.
I believe
find love and be love.
If you give love, you find it anyway.
You do.
Or it finds you.
Yeah, it finds you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, as you two found each other. Yes.
Yeah.
So true.
That's a beautiful way to wrap up this conversation. Anybody else have anything they want to add to?
I'm just kind of taking it all in. What I can do to, if it's attainable. Like, is it attainable for everyone to have a sacred, like, is there people in your life that you just won't get that? Or, like, how do you clean up all the mess to get to that? That's what I'm thinking of. Tim and I have been through difficult times, and there's still stuff we don't, in my opinion, we don't have a sacred relationship. There's too much garbage, and the garbage hasn't been cleared yet. So we're always, it seems like we go along and then we go back to that garbage. And it always keeps popping up and popping up. So we're not clear on to move on to that next step, because I feel you have to either, come within yourself to truly let it go, or I don't know how to attain that.
You just said it. You clear out your own stuff. The first part of sacred relationships is your relationship with yourself and God. We don't put ourselves on the back burner and then engage another, because when you just keep healing and looking at yourself and loving yourself, that will help you maintain a position to create that sacred relationship with another. When we create a sacred relationship, it starts with God in us. So find your relationship with God, find how your relationship with your past experiences is still current in your life. When you feel something irritating you that your partner does, then say, where in me is that a problem? And instead of projecting, saying, you got this problem, say, I'm having a problem, you're showing me something in myself. And you turn it over to your partner to help you in that. And you instantly have a sacred relationship. You say to him, what you're doing right now is creating a problem in me. And it wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't part of your past. If it wasn't something, and then maybe between you can figure out maybe it is his problem and it's not yours, but you start with self. And when the two of you are committed to not pointing out, this is your problem, like just saying, I'm having a problem. Because if you don't like what your partner is doing, essentially it begins with you. It's your problem. And once you resolve that it's not your problem, either you can now surrender and just hold your partner in love, like what we were suggesting, or you can get to the source of what your things that you're hanging on to. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's magical when both of you can do it. Then you've got something in common already.
If you're having a problem, it doesn't mean he's having a problem. Like, say he does something and it upsets you, it doesn't have to become his problem. When you say, partner, I'm having a problem here with something that just happened. If there's a view of maintaining that sacred relationship, he's going to say, how can I help you? And not take it personal. But that's where in a sacred relationship with an intimate partner, there has to be a willingness on both sides. Mm-hmm. So as long as there's a willingness to create that sacred relationship, it'll happen. And the bouncing back and forth just gets like that. You bounce back and forth, and then it gets closer, and then bam.
Mm-hmm. We had to go through that. We went through that.
And the one thing that I thought of when you were talking to her was, a lot of times we spend 99% of our time living in either reflection or anticipation. Reflection of past events that have already happened, or anticipation of future events that aren't even happened yet. What you're missing by doing that is where we are right now, in the now. Right? We're in the now right here, all of us sitting here. That's what you're missing by the anticipation and the reflection. If something's bothering her that he did a while ago, then you're living in that reflection. You're missing the only moment that you really have is the now. Because even when the future happens, it's still the now. There is no future really. It's still the now moment. It's the only moment that we have. The reflection is basically the wake of a boat. When you look behind the boat, what's left there? The wake. The wake isn't driving the boat. Your present moment in the now, the energy, that's what's driving the boat. It's not the wake. Everything that happened in the past is gone. And you can't bring it back, no matter what. You have to let it go. You have to let those things go. Even if they bothered you, you have to let them go. If they're hampering your relationship that you have now in the now, you have to let them go. They're serving no purpose at all, and they have no purpose to serve. Right? Nothing good will ever become of it. Mm-hmm. Ever. You have to just let it go. It's gone. Let that reflection go. It's gone.
Letting go, it's a deeper topic than just the action of letting go. Sometimes there's a transition period in the process of letting go. Letting go can be a process, and understanding, what it takes to let go.
That's what I found in my past marriages was...
Sometimes letting go is easier said than done. When you've been just so hard, it's deep. And it's just hard. Because I find no resolution. Well, when we do talk, there's no resolution. It's bouncing the ball. It's just going back and forth. Or there's not an understanding on the other part, whether I don't understand what he's trying to say or he's not understanding what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. And so we're just bouncing all the time.
Sometimes letting go happens in a series of letting a lot of little things go. Mm-hmm. we're not ready to let go. Certain things we're not ready to let go of, and it's too big to let go of all at once.
Mhm.
So to make it more manageable, we begin to let go of what we can, and that's staying surrendered to that. You know, there's a common ground. In relationships, hopefully, that people love each other, and they want to experience their lives together, and long as that's always come back to as a home base, we love each other, and we're gonna work on ourselves, and I'm gonna let go of what I can, and what I can't let go of, I need you just to love me through it, and then the other person does that back. That's how we create that sacred relationship. It doesn't mean that the relationship is automatically perfect. If there were a lot of dynamics that came to create dysfunction, sometimes it takes a lot of dynamics to uncreate the dysfunction that you experience. But it doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not saying that you're saying that either.
No, I know.
But as long as there's an absolute faith in love, it'll just keep moving closer. And we don't say, if we don't focus on our partner, like he's doing something wrong. Look, I'm having a problem here. Can you help me? And then maybe you can both with love with each other say, where does this come from? My partner does something that's upsetting me. Why is it upsetting me? When did this start upsetting me? Is this relating to a past unrelated conflict that has nothing to do with this moment? Where in my past does this signal me to?
Yeah.
When we look deep enough into another person, find yourself looking back. The greatest thing I've learned in relationships, the greatest thing I've discovered in my relationship is myself.